Welcome everyone to Generational Curse Words. This is episode 5. We're glad to have everyone checking in. I'm Mustafaa Madian, and we have Olivia Harp here,
Hi,
as usual.
everyone.
Hey. We're here and we're back, and uh, really excited about getting into the throngs of things this week. Olivia, what's happening? What's going on in your world?
I know, and it's so funny. Just for the listeners, me and Mustafa will get on here to record, and we'll talk for 30 minutes just about anything, like just about anything that we may not want to say on the episode. But
Mhm.
the things that I want to tell him immediately, I have to hold until we start recording so that it's more organic.
Yeah,
And so, like, we'll be talking for 30 minutes just about life and youth development and the universe, whatever, right?
yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to tell Mustafa, but I got to tell him on the podcast. So it's organic. So I
Yeah.
have good news and a new habit,
Hmm.
but I got my license.
Oh wow!
Did I tell
Congrats.
you? I don't think I told you this.
No, you didn't tell me that you got it. You told me you were working on it. But
Yes,
yeah, okay,
I got my license
okay.
for every. I'm a 30-year-old woman just got with 2 kids who just got her license.
Yeah,
But
this is where I'm supposed to say, look out, people on the road, right?
no, I don't think. I don't know. I'm
uh,
not like a. It's not. I don't. It's not in me to be like a fast driver.
hmm
I'm one of those people. Like if I'm late anyway, I'm
hmm
late. Late is
Right,
late is late is late. So
right,
3 minutes later, I'm not. I'm not doing that.
right.
So yeah, I got my license. I'm so
Okay,
excited.
okay.
Yeah, and I've been in the gym. Hence the
Hmm.
hat. I'm part of the 6 a.m. gym crowd. I told you I
Hmm.
went at 5 a.m.
Hmm.
I'm an observant person.
Hmm.
And I was just feeling the vibes of the 5 a.m. gym. First of all, the 5 a.m. gym crew, those are the people that are waiting outside for them to unlock the doors, right?
Okay, okay.
So a lot of them, they just take fitness too seriously. I felt like I was in the
Hmm.
way no matter
Hmm.
what. I am not cut out for the 5 a.m. gym crowd. I feel like half of them were just super duper invested in their health and all that good stuff for whatever reason, right?
Hmm.
But at the same time, it was giving like the vibe.
Hmm.
I caught a whiff of a vibe. It
Hmm.
was giving addict. Like it was
Hmm.
giving,
Yeah,
let me get to the gym as soon as it opens. Like it was
yeah,
giving,
yeah.
let me go to the gym so I can feel something. It was giving, let me go
Uh-huh,
to the gym so I can avoid something.
uh-huh.
Because there are some people that go to the gym just to escape. And I
Mm.
just felt a whiff of a vibe. I'm not even going to say that it was 90% of the crowd. I'm not even going to say it was 10%
Hmm.
of the crowd. Well, no, it was probably more than 10% of the crowd. But like,
Mhm,
it was just, I just caught a whiff, the spirit
mhm.
moved me of like,
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
I'm here so that my mind can be blank for this amount of time. And I couldn't wait for my mind to be blank again.
Uh-huh,
It's
uh-huh.
given like, let me text the dealer as soon as he wakes up.
Yeah.
That's
Uh-huh.
what that's what it was giving. I just felt
Hmm.
a bit of an obsessive feel to the
Do you
air.
do you feel, or do you think, or do you imagine that people go there to get that feeling because they're amongst other people that are there to get that? Is it sort of like the gym,
It's like
for lack of a better term, crack house or
I was
something?
gonna say like a healthy crack house,
Right? Yeah.
like a healthy crack house. Well,
Yeah.
I feel that way at Whole Foods too,
Yeah.
though. I
Yeah. Yeah.
feel
Isn't
it
that
lit.
interesting? Isn't that
GMC.
interesting? Yeah. That these environments, because it's almost like you feel like everyone's there for the same thing,
Mhm.
for that same reason.
Yeah.
And there's like, okay, we're here because this is the healthy place to be,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
we know we all know, we're in the know as far as
Mhm.
that's concerned.
Cause I felt like I was there. I was working out. I was working
Hmm.
out.
Mhm.
It was never ending, but I was still like observing. There you could see people that are just there and observing and relaxed and just
Mhm.
just they're actually here to be healthy, but also they're willing to stop and smell the flowers. And then there's
Uh-huh.
people that are just like steamrolling through the
Right.
whole thing. And it's
You're
just
right.
like, is anything
Wow.
else on your mind right now? Like, do you like the feeling of
Wow.
nothing else being on your mind? And mind you, there's 1,000 bad things that people can be doing to escape.
Yeah.
So
True.
it's no shade. It's no
Right.
shade, but
Right.
it's just, yeah, it was giving, there's just certain health environments that I enter, whether it's like I said, the GNC,
Mhm.
Whole Foods, the gym, like places like that where people go to get healthy, and it's like just the underlying
Yeah.
feeling
Yeah.
of obsessiveness or
Yeah.
even addiction. I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
know. I
That's
don't know.
interesting. That's interesting because you know what's popping in the back of my mind, and we haven't had this conversation. And again, no shade, but it would probably come up some point. Yoga,
Mm,
yoga, or yogis, or people
yeah.
who, you know, how can I say, they go to a place where it's almost like, where is the rest of the world? You're
Mm,
here in this world with everyone else, but yet you're you're always talking about and presenting about things to the extent that the everyday things don't really
mhm.
matter,
Yeah.
for people who are trying to survive and thrive and grow and just try to figure this thing out, where your focus is really, um, almost says, what of this, none of this really matters. It's almost saying
Mhm.
none of this is real. This is all a dream anyway.
And
Um,
it's true, right? It's true.
yeah,
And
yeah,
don't get
yeah,
me wrong. I am commending people that go
yeah,
to the gym to
mhm,
escape their problems.
yeah, yeah,
I sometimes I wish I had that trait,
yeah,
but I do
yeah,
understand it because even during my postpartum, there was for maybe maybe 2 months, I
hmm,
only felt relaxed
hmm,
during my meditations.
yeah,
That was the
yeah,
only time I felt
yeah.
relaxed. And now I'm even thinking of the show that Arthur got me hooked onto, um, ATL,
Okay.
where one of the guys, he was doing like this hydro hypnotherapy,
Hmm.
and he knew he was taking it too far,
Hmm.
even though his, I guess, visualizations, hallucinations, whatever, while he was in, they felt so good. Like he was able to
Okay.
talk to his, like he had a whole scene where we as the viewer even thought it was real, but he was,
Hmm.
and it feels real. I don't know
Hmm.
exactly the term for it, but
Hmm.
he actually walked into a home where he had a whole conversation with his brother, and then we find out later on that his brother has passed on. You know what I
Uh,
mean? So like
yeah.
even he knew that even though this feels so good, this feels so great, I
Hmm.
can't get hooked on this. And I felt like this even when my dad first passed. Like
Yeah.
I used to have he used to come to my dreams
Hmm.
all the
Hmm.
time, to the point
Hmm.
that I would cry when I woke up.
Yep. Yeah.
I cried after I came to the realization that I was still alive. Like, you know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
just, and
Yeah.
I think even he knew that because he doesn't visit as much as he used to. But I was
Uh-huh.
getting addicted to going to sleep
Yep.
in the hopes that I would even ask him before I go to, please come visit me, please come visit me, please come visit me.
Hmm.
And then after a while, I was just like, he's gone, Olivia. Like,
Right. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can't hold on like this. And where he
Yeah.
is, he's probably doing way more for you than he
Yeah.
can
Uh-huh.
than, even while he's visiting you. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
just understanding like, yes, the escape may feel healthy, it may
Hmm.
feel great, it may even feel too good to be true, but
Hmm.
um, the truth starts to set you
Yeah.
free. There's nothing better than
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing better than a reality that you enjoy because you made it enjoyable. You decided it was enjoyable.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
But I'm still gonna keep going to the gym at 6 a.m. But I'm not going at 5
Right.
a.m. I was like, I ain't cut out for this. I feel like I'm in the way.
So
Okay,
that one hour makes a difference, huh? That 1 hour window
which is, I think it's the people that were waiting for the gym to
to
open
open. Yeah.
at
Yeah.
5
Yeah.
a.m. though. I was like, yo, but it makes a huge difference even in the flow of
Yeah.
things. And you could argue that, they're there as early as possible to get there at 9 a.m. And that could be
Mhm.
100% true. But even me and all my fabulousness, I
Mhm.
can go to the gym from 6 to 7, get home by 7:30, get ready by 8:30 and be to work by 9.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I'm going to I don't know if I'm going to join a gym or whatever, but I do because normally what I would do in the morning is walk. I would normally
Mhm.
get up early and just walk, then come back and shower and then get ready for work or get my day going. But I do want to
Mhm.
step it up. And I guess this is for everyone out there because what was it? I think Sputnik Radio. I can't remember what the name of the host was, and she was talking about an experience where someone had told her she was eating a donut or whatever, and the guy was saying, "Nah, we need you healthy for the struggle. We need you healthy. We need you. You can't afford not to take care of yourself due to what you bring to it." So, and I was thinking. Um, Once I got this position, this work with DJS in Maryland, really focus on my health too.
Mhm.
To be healthy, to be at my best. For this work. So again, I don't know if a gym is good for me. Because yeah, again, because of the environment, because of the people that are there, and if I went, it would probably be at the quietest time or the moment where there's not a lot
Mhm.
of people there, and I don't know that that's the case now. um, but I do know I want to step up what I'm doing beyond just walk.
Mhm.
That some diet, and, just pick it up a bit. So.
Well, I will say, Mustafa, you're probably one of the healthiest people I know. So don't worry that's probably not saying a lot because I'm southern as hell. But I don't think you have much work
uh,
to do.
I know I play with how I play with young people. I say, I might not be able to run faster than you, but I can probably run longer,
Hmm.
because they tend to uh especially young people today, they don't focus on their health the way they used to. And I can't even say that for real when I think about it. It's just that nowadays, um those who are active is because of some activity or something they're involved in, but it isn't like a conscious thing. And it's because we don't
Hmm.
make it conscious for young people. We don't make health a focus for young
Hmm.
people. We don't make, I mean, like when we do the thing about youth culture, what do young people eat? As adults, we have pretty much assigned and accepted that young people eat a certain way or eat
Hmm.
certain things that's typical of being a young person. Um, and so we don't really focus on that. We don't facilitate health for young people, I think, the way we
Hmm.
should as
Even when
adults.
I even when I think about playing sports in my adolescence, right?
Hmm.
Because even though I settled on basketball, I played soccer, softball. I tried it all out. I was doing martial
Hmm.
arts at one time. I don't know why.
Hmm. Hmm.
But actually, no, I do know why. Martial arts was lit. I'm not gonna
Is
lie.
it
I
is it
enjoyed
is it
it.
is it's powerful,
Mhm.
yeah.
I enjoyed it. That was the one sport I actually like broke a bone in. I was going
Hmm.
hard, okay?
Uh-huh.
And you can
Hmm.
break a bone, yes, in martial arts, but
Oh yeah.
um yeah, even when I look at the coaches, the way that they facilitate sports,
Hmm.
um the only young people on the team that had to worry about diet were those that the coaches recommended that they lose weight.
Exactly.
Like you're on a
Hmm.
diet to lose weight to play, but all the other kids that were, even if they were smaller yet unhealthy, they're sitting
Hmm.
on the side eating chips and
Yep.
sodas and
Yep.
Gatorades at practice and no
Yeah.
one's
Yeah.
saying anything.
Yeah.
Um yeah, so I remember I do remember that. The only time diet came into play was when you needed to lose weight. And that probably explains to me why I still struggle to have an enjoyable weight loss journey. It comes with a
Hmm.
lot of anxiety and even, dare I say, like the need to be perfect, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And I just have to keep reminding myself, like, average, even below average, consistency is better than sporadic perfection. So
Right.
even with the gym, I'm not trying to go every day. I'm just trying to continue to go. No
Yeah.
matter how many days it's
Yeah.
been, just
Yeah.
continue to go. Because when we're not perfect at something,
Yeah.
then we tend to quit. When
Yeah.
really that could
Yeah.
have just been a week that you didn't go to the gym at all. That doesn't mean you can't
Yeah.
pick it up again. You know, just because you
Exactly.
weren't perfect, that doesn't mean it's over. But
Exactly.
but yeah, I think a lot of holistic health only comes into place in young people in sports when people are looking at you and you don't look healthy to them.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting. But just to segue, because we have way more questions to ask.
Uh-huh.
Last week we did a Ask Olivia, and I think I still have some imposter syndrome from that episode because you asked me a question about women in general, and here I
Mhm.
am like, who am I, to
Uh-huh.
answer that question? Who
Uh-huh.
I just had to like because I was actually gonna come on here and tell you, like, I don't like that episode. Can we re-record it? Can we do
Uh-huh.
another
Uh-huh.
Ask Olivia? And I'm like, no, no, no. You
Mhm.
said something's going to resonate with not even somebody, with a lot of bodies, okay?
Right.
And I just need to leave it at that. So this episode is our Ask Mustafa episode.
Mhm. Mhm.
Really excited to ask Mustafa questions. I wanted to make sure it didn't sound like, a youngin asking an elder, like, what's your secret to life? Like what is your what is your recipe to a successful relationship? I will
Mhm.
never remember. I asked the old head this and he set me straight. I was like,
Did he?
yes, I was like, what is the secret to a forever marriage, to a
Mhm.
marriage that lasts forever? And he was like, honestly, don't break up. And that was it.
And
That was
that's
it.
it. And
Like
that's it.
the only thing that those people didn't do. And even if
Right.
they did, you ain't never know.
Right. Right.
He was like, the secret is just not break up. Like I was
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. I'm thinking they all doing something right. When they're doing all the same wrong things everyone else is doing,
Mhm.
they just didn't
Mhm.
break up.
That's
So
it.
yeah. So I'm trying to make sure that I don't ask the arbitrary question. So
Mhm.
and I have to set up this question. So
Yeah.
I'm sure people have peeped that Mustafa thinks very differently. Mustafa's mind is different.
Mhm.
You think from it's kind of weird, but you have a perfect balance between the grand scheme of things, but also meticulous enough that it's intentional.
Mm.
So you will give me advice regarding my specific situation,
Mhm.
advice that is unique to Olivia,
Mhm.
advice that Olivia will take. You know the advice that Olivia's not going to take.
Right. Right.
But you'll also leave me walking away thinking about the grand scheme of things, not just
Mhm.
Olivia, but Black people in general, without making
Mhm.
me feel like I have the weight of the race on my back.
Right.
So um, I think we could blame it on Star Trek a lot. I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
You do say
Yeah.
that. You have a very um you make utopias you make people realize that utopias are actually not a dream world, that they're
Right.
actually very possible and
Mhm.
very easy to bring about, whether it's for your individual universe or the
Mhm.
great large scheme of things. So
Mhm.
all that to say, Mustafa thinks differently, okay? And that's
Yeah.
the only person that I really go to advice and tell the whole story to. Mustafa knows things my mama don't even know, okay? So I guess the question is, and you can answer it however. You can
Mhm.
answer it
Mhm.
from a when perspective or
Mhm.
a how perspective. So
Mhm.
either when did you crack the code to
Mhm.
unlock your outlook on life? And
Mhm.
this is going to sound like our icebreaker. Now you're going to have to talk about your outlook on life a little bit.
Right.
Or
Right.
how did you crack the code to unlock your outlook on life?
Okay. Um, I think I would say if I were to say the when, I think it would almost go back to um, when I was a child. And I think, I say when I was a child, I think I think it kind of connects to, and I talk about this in youth development when we talk about the need for self-awareness, or self-awareness as a developmental need, knowing who you are. And I think, um, and I talk about when a child, or when a person becomes sentient. And sentient to me is when you are aware of your awareness, when you become aware that you are a living being. And for me, it happened. I think I might have been maybe 5 or 6 years old, and that point to me, when people say, "Well, what is it? When do people become aware?" And I say, "Well, everyone can remember pretty much." Or I ask people to think about in the training. When were you first aware that you were not going to live forever? All right, so what moment? And so many of us can think about the moment that we realized, one day I'm going to die. One day I'm not going to be here. With that comes sentience. With that comes awareness that you are, and I knew at that time that was coupled with my mom, Christian background and teaching. Well, you're gonna, we're gonna die and we're gonna go to heaven. Everything dies at some point, and at that point is when I began to kind of question everything. So I was always known as a child that when you told me something, I would hear it, but then I would question it in terms of a logical point of view. As a child, I knew I wanted to become a scientist because I always was fascinated about how things worked, how things were. So I used to ask a whole lot of questions. And when I became a teenager, I began to question everything, the logic of everything, particularly
Mhm.
with religion. I think I mentioned to you that in the fourth grade, that would have maybe 9 years old, I had this teacher that took us on a trip to every major faith place you could. We went to a mosque, we went to the cathedral, we went to a synagogue, we went to the Seventh Day Adventist Church, and we got to speak with a priest, rabbi, imam, and we the question that they answered for us is basically what it was they believed, who the principal parties were in their religion, the fundamental tenets, and what they practiced. And as I said, that was the first time where I became aware that there were other people who thought and believed other things. And when I first became aware that people were not afraid to not believe what I had been taught, because I had been basically in a Christian religion, we're,
Mhm.
we're raised we're raised to fear. So I began to question, and I began to ask my mom all kinds of questions like, you know, Mom, you sit under a preacher, all your life. When are you going to know as much as a preacher? And she said, "What do you mean?" I say, "Well, we're always sitting under the preacher. When are you going to be qualified to be up there and teaching? When are you going to know enough to know what it is that he knows?" And she was like, "Boy, boy, boy." Or I would say things like, "Well, Ma, if we celebrate Jesus because he rose from the dead, well, Lazarus rose from the dead far before Jesus. Why aren't we talking about him?" Or I would
Mhm.
say, "Well, Mom, uh, we're fascinated that Jesus, is the Son of God, whatever." I said, "Well, Adam and Eve, they didn't have a mother or a father, so it seems to me that they would be, So she was like,
Mhm.
"Boy, what makes you think like that?" So I really, really began to question. Now, when things really became, I guess, really, really opened up for me again when I was a teenager. I was fortunate enough, when I got involved with the arts, and I met other young people that thought the way I thought. They were off the cuff. We would sit and we would talk about, life and death, and again question everything. Um, and I had some mentors or teachers. Uh, I think Harry Poe, Mike Malone, Kenneth Doherty, a lot of the art teachers and instructors in dance and theater, etc. And we would have what we called thought sessions, and we
Mhm.
would just sit around for hours. And I mean, late into night, when we're supposed to be home, late into night, especially on weekends, and we would talk about everything. I mean, listening to Les McCann, Roberta Flack, and Nina Simone, and just talking about anything in life and who we were and why. And it was during that time that I really began to, as I say, to kind of question and seek answers. Um, uh, I read, Khalil Gibran, the prophet,
Mhm.
as a teenager. And I was not an avid reader coming up. If you asked me to read, oh no, reading was not my strong suit at all. But that's when I began to read, books like that, and really got into thought. I had what was called a thought book as a teenager. We would call that a journal now, but the difference is that for us, it was like streams of consciousness and just thinking and just imagining, and again being in a group of young people who thought the same way and had sessions. And I'll share two more things that kind of opened it up for me. One is, at one point, um, again, this is, I think, between 17, 16, 17, when I had so many questions and no one could answer. And this is the thing I think was key. I even began to ask ministers or pastors or preachers, and they got to the point where they just gave that canned response: "You just got to believe. You just got to believe. Don't question. You can't question." That didn't settle well in me. Um, so at one point, I always believed in a higher power, but at one point, even when I prayed, I used to just call out the name of everyone, Yahweh, Jehovah, whatever, whoever you
Mhm.
are, you know, and that gave me a sense that there of a universal energy, of a universal thought force, and that it really wasn't about the name. And I can remember when I joined the Nation of Islam at one point, and I used to ask him, I said, well, my mom said, when I asked my mom about, she said, well, I've been believing in Jesus all my life and everything, and I'm not going to stop now. And I asked him out, I said, well, my mom said this, what do you think? He said to me simply, he said, do you think that the creator of the universe would punish you simply because you don't know what to call him, or simply because of what you call him?
Mm.
And it was at that point that I relinquished the idea that there had to be a specific way or
Mhm.
specific knowledge. I have a practice that serves me, but at that point is when I began to kind of open up and said, you know what? The universe never leaves anyone without guidance, without
Mhm.
a source. And if we come from that, then we have to be at the key of it. So, with everything that I think and with everything that I consider that at the core of it is the same source. Yeah, the
Mhm.
core, and so um, and Star Trek, was the place where, as a young person when Star Trek first came out back in the '60s, and my mom was like a Star Trek, and I was fascinated the first episode because Spock had the ears. I said, "Oh my God, it's a devil on TV." Yeah, that's how everyone saw it, and but then as I began to follow and basically grew up with it, and I would say I'm an avid Trekker because of the ideas and the concepts, and because all of the social issues. One thing I can say about that is that all of the social issues that we face in life have been covered. What many people don't know about Star Trek is that many of the episodes of Star Trek were written by so-called fans. That you
Mhm.
could actually write, so
Oh.
people could write. You could write an episode of Star Trek, and so it kind of reminds me again of AYD, Advancing Youth Development. When people ask me about that, well, who wrote it? Who's behind it? Well, there's no author. This is a
Yeah.
something that is a compilation of many people in the field, of hundreds
Mhm.
of people bringing their best to create this field. And that's ultimately what a lot of people don't know about Star Trek, is that that's what that is. That's the thoughts and the creativity. There are real scientists behind the science there, which is why a lot of our inventions and everything have come from that. There are real socialists and sociologists, or people concerned with matters of humanity. That's why there are episodes on everything that you can imagine,
Mhm.
including I picked out a few youth development episodes. Episode that dealt with punishment, whether you should beat kids, and I mean, it's all there, um, all the way to and including how we can have a society that is not capitalistic, that is based on people, and that's not based on money or gain and everything. So that's why I always talk about, a Star Trek universe, because many people can at least relate to that, or they know about that, even if they've never watched an episode of Star Trek. When you say a
Mhm.
Star Trek universe, they can understand that. And so that yeah, that's kind of where, as a snapshot, where a
Mhm.
lot of my thinking um, has come from. And then just my love, just my love for people, and the world. And I have a sensitivity. One last thing I'll add is, when I did become, since when I was aware that I, was not going to be here forever. I remember sitting on the porch out back when I lived in Shipley Terrace, here in DC. When I found that out, I went and I sat on the back porch, and I just kept saying, I want to be good. I want to be good. I want to be good. God, just please let me be good. Let me be good. Let me be good. And I mean, I kept saying that to the point that I was like in tears. Mama, what's wrong with you? I just want to be good. So at the same time, I was filled with a fear. I was also filled with an understanding that I, wanted to be everything that was the best of what I could be. I wanted to be good. I did say this last thing, but there's one other thing. And at that point is when I accepted the fact that out of my siblings, my five brothers and sisters, I was always the one that my mom would come to and ask for something. I was always the one growing up. I was all the one people would come to advice, and so I accepted pretty much um, my name, Mustafa, which means chosen. I accepted by virtue of how people related to me that they always chose me to do certain things. First, it felt like a burden, and then I accepted it as a
Mhm.
responsibility, that's what I was kind of put here for. So, and
Mhm.
it's like people say, well, how can I get that, or how can I do that, or what do you do? And I would say the one thing that I continue to try to do is accept the responsibility um, that there's a responsibility that comes along with what I consider a blessing of all of
Mhm.
that, so, and that
Yeah.
the more I do that, the more I'll be blessed to be able to do that.
Mhm.
And I find that whenever I give, uh, and I always think about this way, whenever I give in terms of advice or information, or I find that when I give, I'm really giving to myself. Because a lot of people say, how do you know what you know? How do you do what you do? And I think whenever I'm asked a question, when I attempt to answer it, from the heart and from inside, I'm actually answering the question many times for myself for the first
Mhm.
time. So I'm actually learning it as I go through the
Yeah.
process, and that's what fascinates me. Um, People say, "Wow, I'm glad you told me that," and I say, "I'm glad you asked me," because I hadn't thought about it. I hadn't thought about it until you asked me. So that's where, and I always
Mhm.
try to approach everything from. I'm not afraid. I think the good thing is when you get to a point in life where you're not afraid of God, whatever that
Mhm.
means to you. And and people say, "What do you mean?" Well, I'm not afraid to acknowledge the God force that's within me, and I think if we all do that, um, I have a friend I play around with a lot. She go, "Oh my Lord!" I'll say, "What?" And she said, "I said, what did you just say?" I said, "Well, didn't you just say, 'Oh my Lord'?" Yeah, I'm answering you. What? Oh, that's blasphemous. That's blasphemous. I recognize the God in me, and I'm not afraid to do that.
Mhm.
I mean, I have this, well, you're not supposed to do that. Well, I can do that. I can do that.
You're
I'm
the
not afraid to
chosen
do
one.
right, right. I can do that. Are you trying to say you God? I'm saying, hey, don't you go around saying greater is he that is in me? I mean, come on,
Mhm.
So, um, but I know that's a long answer, Olivia, but
It needed
that's
to
a kind of a
be.
taste. Yeah, that's kind of a taste of how I think. And I think about everything that way. I don't
Mhm.
care what it is. I think about um, everything that way. It
Mhm.
just kind of flows.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
I'm really glad I answered that question, because even as you were reflecting,
Mhm.
I was thinking like, "Oh yeah, that's why we're a good team. Oh, that's another reason why we're a good team." Like, I don't know what it is, but no matter what, right?
Mhm.
You and I together are always a force to be reckoned with
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
field.
yeah,
And part of it is because of we have similarities. I get
yeah.
told all the time, I'm an old soul, I'm an old soul, I'm an old
Uh-huh.
soul.
Mhm.
And so even just now um when you were talking about your experience in the arts,
Mhm.
being around other Black creatives, other Black
Mhm.
artists, I'm like, that sounds a lot like my friends. And even when I
Yeah.
I think about it, especially my friends in the Black Studies field, I was part of the
Mhm.
Kwame Ture Society.
Uh-huh.
That's the name that Stokely Carmichael chose.
Ah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I was part of the Kwame Ture Society, and it's kind of crazy because I'm like, why does that sound exactly like the Kwame Ture Society? And
Uh-huh.
I have to
Uh-huh.
remember, like, other other fields
Yep.
are
Yep.
about progress,
Yep. Yep.
acceleration, innovation. When you look at
Yep.
engineering,
Yep.
educate, like, people are always trying to create, and move forward. But
Yes.
in the field of Black studies, we're still trying to solve
Yeah.
problems that are just
Yeah.
becoming more and more complex. And so,
Yeah.
even when we
Yeah.
read, what is it, David Walker's The Appeal,
Mhm.
or even Willie Lynch letter, The Making of a Slave, it's still
Mhm.
relevant today. So
Yes.
we don't get to move forward. We don't
Yeah.
get
Right.
to move. Like, we're stuck in a constant state of
Uh-huh.
Sankofa in the
Uh-huh.
field. And so
Mhm.
it just made me think, like, this work, especially in not just Black studies, but Black studies at the intersection of youth development,
Of youth
it
development, yeah.
requires old souls. It
It does.
requires people
It does.
that still feel and harness the energy of back in the day, whether
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
the 90s, the
Yeah.
70s, the
Yeah.
40s,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
yeah, I thought
Yeah.
that was interesting. And it's so funny because we had a conversation back at our previous place of employment. Then I get no airtime. people, Even though people are gonna dig and find it, I don't care.
Mhm.
But there was a we had a long me and Mustafa always had long conversations that had nothing to do with the work, but it moved the work forward
Yes.
better
Yeah.
than anyone else's work.
Yeah.
The people that had even longer conversations. But
Mhm.
I remember that my mom told me that she had a dream, and she
Mhm.
saw my guardian angel.
Mm.
And she said the guardian angel had a sword that was so long it went through the floor. And she
Wow.
still remembers that really vividly. And I remember
Wow.
telling you about that.
Mhm.
And you and my mom are from uh the same goodness sphere,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Everyone has good in them, everyone has light in them, all
Mhm.
of that. And so when she had that gem, she couldn't conceive that an angel not only had a weapon,
Right.
but a very large, powerful weapon.
Mhm.
And so, I think that your outlook on life of there's good in everything and all of that, I
Mhm.
think coupled with my, I at the core, that's my belief too. At the core, everyone's
Mhm.
gonna get where they need to go. At the core, everyone has good. But even when I spoke to my mom about that sword, I was like, at some point, you do have to
Yeah.
acknowledge that
Yeah.
there is evil. And even if
Yeah.
there's good under the evil, there's still evil.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
even in our work, Mustafa, love you to
Yeah.
death, but you
Yeah.
gave people chances, and I
Yeah.
came in like,
Yeah.
no,
Yep.
scope
Yep.
of
Yep.
work
Yeah.
broken, revoked.
Yep.
You
Yep.
can't be, you're gonna hold up
Yeah.
our work. So,
Yeah.
appreciate you, fam. Understand that you are trying to
Yeah.
help, but you not ready to help. So
Yeah, yeah, I've accepted that. I've
catch you
accepted
next
that
time.
as if I would identify an Achilles heel, like people say, what is your weakness or whatever,
Mhm.
it's that I really, default with an expectation that people are going to do the right thing, or that people are going to be good, or that
Mhm.
that this this venom, I mean, and always looking for that and expecting that, and appealing to that with people. Well, that doesn't make sense, right? you
Mhm.
know you know and then having to come to grips with the fact that some people are just like you said, that angel has a sword for a reason. There
Mhm.
is evil there are some folk, there, as we're witnessing throughout the world today, all shade intended, that there is actually legitimate evil in the world that is bent on its own
Mhm.
intent. When you were talking about the Kwame Ture Society, I was thinking about, we had a group called Black Infinity as artists.
Okay.
And what we were supposed to do, and I remember clearly, it was like 25 years in the future, we were supposed to come together, um, from wherever we were. We were supposed to go out once we graduated from college, where to go out into the world and do what we were going to do, establish ourselves, and then we're going to come back in 25 years strong with what we had learned and what we established in our positions, and we were going to unite and move the world forward through the arts.
Mhm.
That was
Yes.
what we were going to do, so you're right, in every field, I think that was, when we talk about legacy, and what we do, and what's innate in us, as a people, is that it's almost like we know we have that obligation. It's like we know we have that purpose. It's like we're
Mhm.
all marked with that. We're here, and if we have any sense of who we are, any sense of the struggle, we know we're
Mhm.
supposed to we're supposed to do something. And what was it? Just maybe about a month ago, we had a person, a discussion in a training with some young people, and a young person was saying, "Well, I think things have gotten better." Because the topic came up, have things gotten better for us as a people? And I was
Mhm.
playing some clips of James Baldwin, of El Haj Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X, and I was playing some clips of some statements that they were making in interviews, and in all of these interviews, what they had in common was that the words that they were speaking can be spoken today, was just
Mhm.
as true today as if they
Yeah.
had been spoken 50 years ago. And so the question came up, have things gotten better? Have things changed?
Mhm.
And there were some young people who said, yeah, things are better, things are better. And I was asking, what do you base that on? And they were talking about things that they could do, with certain freedoms that they perceived that they had. And I was telling him, I said, well, as a person who lived during that time, Martin Luther King was alive, Malcolm X was alive. I
Mhm.
mean, John F. Kennedy was alive, and I can tell you, these people walked the earth, and I walked the earth at the same time. I said, I can tell you, things have not changed. I said,
Mhm.
they have morphed. In other words, they've taken a different appearance. You know how to say energy just changes form, and that's what it has done. But in terms of our progress as a people, and I say, just think about it. I mean, look at what's happening, Roe versus Wade, voting rights and everything. I said, things are in many, many ways are
Mhm.
really are beginning to get worse. I said, I can see it. You can't see it because you're just here. You just dropped on
Mhm.
the planet, so to speak. And so I say all that to say, you're right. There needs to be, we who have, come before, we have an obligation, because if we don't engage young people, they can't see it. If we don't show it to them, they
Mhm.
really can't, they can't see it. And we have more of an obligation to show them, and to give that kind of direction than we have to, help them become contributing members of society. Um,
Mhm.
so, yeah, that is needed,
Yeah.
especially for our young people, because they don't have a context of which to see, what hasn't changed. They're
Mhm.
just here, and a lot of them are suffering, and if they can't see it, um, there's no way they can see a way forward without it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's the I mean, that's the thing about our history. I know, my first day of Intro to Afro American Studies, my professor, Dr. Greg Carr, said that Black studies is studied in a cyclical
Mm.
motion,
Mhm.
because the Black experience is cyclical, right?
Mhm.
We kind
Mhm.
of go round and round and round and round, and almost like a spiral in a notebook. When you go round and round and
Yeah.
round and round, you normalize feeling the same way over and over again and ending up
Yeah.
at the same points, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But and to the point that it's hard to realize, are you spiraling up or are you
Yeah.
spiraling
And
down?
down,
Because the
right.
feeling of that cycle
Mhm.
is repetitive. And
Yeah.
so um yeah, I just always have to remember that, even when talking about just healing as a Black race,
Mhm.
understanding that I do think that we are healing. I
Mhm.
will say that in terms of world affairs, political matters, I'm not sure. I'm not
Mhm.
sure because we said in last week's episode, when you've done all that you can and nothing's changing, karma steps
Mhm.
in, right?
Mhm. Right.
Um, karma isn't just a you get what you give type of
Right.
thing.
Right.
It's a balancing act to progress things forward.
Exactly.
That's really what karma is. Even
Exactly.
what we call karma, Haitians call Vandun.
Mhm.
People
Mhm.
call it voodoo, woo, to
Mhm.
make it seem a little more scarier than it is. But it really is a balancing act to progress things forward. I've even seen
Yeah.
karma happen in my life where it feels like crap at first, but then
Right.
before you know
Right.
it, you're jolted, right?
Yep. Yep.
And so no matter how much you fight something or fight
Mhm.
for something,
Mhm.
things are going to jolt. that's
Anyway, yep,
just
they are. Yep.
that's just the
Mhm.
reality. And so
Mhm.
um I think especially my purpose in Black studies is just to heal through connection,
Mhm.
making sure that people have the information necessary to look at people that look like them all around
Mhm.
the world and see themselves, and even that
Mhm.
people on the continent can look at people in the States, Mozambique, um, Australia, and see themselves and acknowledge
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
And that's going to take some humility on one
Mhm.
side and
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
some trust and faith on the other, but
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
just
And
understanding, yeah.
yeah, and that is happening, and
Hmm.
and that I did point out in that conversation. There is on in terms of like, when you say are things the same, are things getting better? Well, a lot of things are the same, but there
Hmm.
is a level of awareness. Like I have a constant tag that I do now, which is people aren't stupid anymore. And they
Mhm.
really
Yeah.
aren't. People really aren't. You hear conversations that people used to say, oh, that's conspiracy. That's conspiracy. No, 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 no. The light is on so many things now. And even on the
Mhm.
continent, to hear what African leaders are saying today have never heard before. And what I mean is when and when I say we knew it and we were aware of it, but they're now saying no.
Mhm.
Europeans, you can no longer come in and take from us and just move out and we stay destitute. They are aware of everything and they're having these conversations about how corruption has affected and colonialization has affected everything. So
Mhm.
people, the conversations, and you're right, it jolted forward. I'm just thinking
Yeah.
Rodney King. I'm thinking George Floyd. I mean, when it happens, it just it just
Mhm.
moves, so far ahead, and it takes something for that to happen. But you're right, it does, and
Mhm.
that's why I tell people, like when people are concerned about who's going to get the next election or who's going to win, and I tell them, I say, well, I think what people consider their worst case scenario will happen. And they say, well, why do you think that? Why would you wish that? I say, well, the way things have to happen is they have to completely exhaust themselves.
Mhm.
Like if we really want to quote unquote fight racism, not that I don't think there's something you can fight, it has to show its true ugly head in its
Mhm.
entirety. We can no longer hide and think, okay, things are better and whatever. It needs to come out. So all of the evil, before that angel swings that sword, it's all got to come out.
Mhm.
It's all got to present itself so that it can be dealt with. So even when they say things will get worse before they get better, to me, that's not a bad thing.
Mhm.
Things have to get as bad as they can get so they can be dealt with in its entirety. That's another way for me to say
Mhm.
that. Things have to get as bad as it can get in order for all of it to be dealt with.
Mhm.
Because what's been happening is we've been dealing with things in increments.
Yeah.
So it seems like things are getting better. We'll deal with this little piece over here to the east. We'll deal with this piece to the west. No, everything has to get as ugly as it's going to get. And then when karma steps in, oh yeah,
Mhm.
oh yeah, it's going to take care of all of it. So, yeah, that's my belief side, of all of that,
Mhm.
so yeah,
And it's
yeah,
even making me think that's why everything goes back to Africa. This is
yeah,
even making me think about the Kinkongo cosmogram.
yeah,
So it looks like the clock
mm-hmm.
because everything is stolen. It looks like the clock, right? And
You're right.
so it can either be time, a rotation
Mm-hmm.
around the sun. It could be the
Mm-hmm.
four seasons, but
Mm-hmm.
it applies to everything in life. And so that's why I said
Mm-hmm.
the black experience is a cyclical
Mm-hmm.
experience. It requires a cyclical study. And so even when you look at the oh my gosh, I hate to have to use Eurocentric
Mm-hmm.
um terminology so that we can all understand each other, but it's
Right.
the conditions that we're in. When you look
Yeah.
at the 12 o'clock, the noon, that's
Right.
that's the birth, right?
Right.
You go down to 3. Is that 3? Yeah, 3.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh Lord, I'm the digital clock age. You go you go down
Well, we
to
just lost half of our audience.
I
What's a
know,
clock? What's
right?
it?
You go down to 3, that's the peak.
Mm-hmm.
That's the mid age of your life. You go down to 6.
Mm-hmm.
6 is the death. Death
Right.
is only halfway through. It's not
Right.
the end. And
Right.
so right now in the world, we're witnessing a death,
Mm-hmm.
right? But we're only halfway there in
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
cycle in history. We still
Yeah.
have to go to the 9 o'clock stop where we are recreated
Yeah.
or quote unquote reincarnated. And then
Uh-huh.
from 9 to 12 is the redelivery of the
Uh-huh.
new thing, right?
Uh-huh.
And so that's
Mhm.
why the one of the things my professors always said, you're not going to be alive to see the change that you're fighting for. If
Right.
if this whole thing only dies at 6,
Yeah.
you're going to be dead at 1.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so just understanding that if you ever want
Mhm.
to look into the Kikongo
Mhm.
cosmogram, Kikongo with K,
Okay.
not
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
as we spell it
Mhm.
now with a
Yeah.
C.
I was
So
chuckling because earlier this year, I was substituting. I had a long-term position, and um, I actually brought in a clock um, to put on the wall so
Mhm.
that we could tell what time class was over, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I was amazed. These were seventh graders, Olivia. They could not tell time with an analog clock.
Mhm.
You know, they like, Miss Maddie, what time is it? I said, you see the clock on the wall? Yeah. Miss Maddie, what time is it?
Yep.
And
Because I'm about to
I
pretend
said,
like it's time to go.
right. Oh wow. I said, you guys can't. I said, yeah. I said, I'm gonna fix you guys. I said, I'm gonna start writing all your assignments on the board in cursive, and we're really gonna have a good time.
Oh my
No, Miss Maddie,
gosh.
don't do that. Don't do that. And there's something to be said about the
Mhm.
old knowledge, just in terms of, I don't know, just even another way of saying things. But yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. It's cycles.
Yeah,
Um, you remember what was it, 2012, right? When the world was supposed to come to an end because of
I
the Mayan
do. I
calendar.
slightly remember that. I do
Yeah,
slightly remember that.
yeah. The world was supposed to come to an end. Why? Because the Mayan calendar. which was the most exacting calendar, actually came to an end at that
Mhm.
point. And the kids were asking me in school, "Well, what's going to happen? Is the world supposed to come to an end? The clock, it ends there." And I say, "Well, what happens after 12 o'clock?" They said, "It becomes 1 o'clock again." I said, "Okay." I said, "So that's your Mayan calendar. It just starts over." And they're
Mhm.
like, "Oh." And they did movies about the end of the world in 2012. I mean, it just shows
I
you this
remember.
European thinking. Yeah, everybody thought everything was going to come to an end. No, it
And my
just
whole thing,
starts over.
who it who are you that you think you know exactly when the
Yeah,
world is
yeah,
go it's the whole thing with global warming. No, I'm not
yeah.
backing Trump. Please don't come for me. I'm not backing Trump. But it's the idea that the world has been heating and
Mhm,
cooling since the
mhm,
beginning of time.
mhm,
The last episode
mhm.
we said that Africa was the only continent that has for the most part survived 3 ice ages, right?
Yeah,
And so if the earth has been heating and cooling since the beginning of time, what makes you think that your
yeah.
water bottle is going to you have to finish the sentence.
Mhm.
What makes you think that your water bottle and charging 5 cents per bag and it sounds more like capitalism
Right.
than saving the world. It sounds like
Yeah,
that's cap child. That's
yeah,
capitalism. I wonder if that's
yeah,
even what cap is short for. If it is, I commend young people, but
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
Um,
That's interesting. Yeah, yeah.
right?
Mhm,
Okay,
mhm.
okay. And we have to go to
Yeah.
our next question. We didn't even ask questions. Everyone, this is what me and Mustafa's conversations look like.
This is
We
what they
get to
look
it
like.
eventually, but it's the reason
This
why our
thing.
meetings be 3 hours instead of one.
Yeah. This is what they look like. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. So I have another question, and I think this is going to
Mhm,
segue us into our curse word for the week. Yes, we have not
mhm,
gotten into our curse word, and we are on, I don't know, we're at like 55
mhm,
minutes. So
mhm,
I hope you enjoy the long episode. So I have a question for you.
mhm,
Um, yeah, I'm gonna use this time selfishly because I need advice.
mhm,
Me, in all of my youth development expertise, child psychology books, studying parenting and black masculinity and all that stuff. I was just telling Arthur yesterday that our 2-year-old, right?
mhm,
I'm not doing well with him. Like, I've noticed a decline in the number of success stories um, that I have with him. Like, I'm not handling this quote unquote terrible twos
mhm,
well. And
mhm,
it's of course, as a parent, you just think that this is the age where they're gonna start to hate me because
mhm,
I'm not uh fun, happy arts and crafts mom as much as I used to. I'm more of like, please don't do that. Please time out. You sit on your backside. Okay, you're gonna go to timeout. Okay, like
mhm,
and we're starting
mhm,
to enforce nap time and
mhm,
bedtime, and that just feels like we're doing something crazy to him. But
mhm,
I just feel like I'm like caught in between. I'm caught in between. He can't have his way all the time. And how do we give in to give him his way
mhm,
some of the time?
mhm.
I told him, like, I don't know what I'm doing. And for the first time, I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. Any advice, especially about
Mhm.
raising young men?
Yeah, yeah. So you know how in the training we talk about independence and autonomy, and how we talk
Mhm.
about how that begins to kick in at what we call the terrible twos, and generally, what happens is the first time where our child actually almost literally says no when we tell them to do something we
Mhm.
ask them to do. Then they actually say no, and they actually realize that they can say no or that they can choose. And sometimes it's just the practice of being able to choose, of the practice of that independence. And sometimes it is also um, because I don't want to do it. It's because of the need,
Mhm.
I really want to do something different. Um, and sometimes when that happens, it intersects with something that is or is inappropriate in terms of behavior or something, and we really
Mhm.
do want them to learn and to do something better. So part of it is, so that's a point where we look at, um, what's actually being done there, or what's actually happening there. And um, usually when that kind of sets in and it kind of mixes with their little egos in defining who am I, and how do I get to choose, and what is it that I want, then what we have, when especially if it's a behavior thing, for instance, if it's I remember seeing this clip, and I'll use an example. I think it was, I don't know if it was a TikTok or whatever, but this guy talks about the power of words. Um, and in this speech, he talks about his son, who he walks into the room, and his son is drawing on the wall with the crayons. He's just drawing all over the wall.
Mhm.
And he says, "What are you doing? Stop that. So what's wrong with you? Don't do that, And so he says, don't ever do that again. And then he walks in on another time, and he sees his son writing on the wall. And in
Mhm.
fact, his son turns around and even looks at him, watching him write on the wall,
Mhm.
and as if to say, okay, now what? And so he says, what he does is he goes over to the son, he says, and he just kind of comes down to his level, and he says to him, he says, listen, love. He says, big boys don't do that, and you're a big boy now.
Mhm.
He says, and he's never had to say again to his son not to write on the wall. So what it is acknowledging that personage, acknowledging that strength in a way that you can then kind of help him define what that is.
Mhm.
So as he begins to do these things and act a certain way, to give a structure and a form for that, because
Mhm.
he really doesn't have a form for that choice. He just knows, I can choose, I can reject it, you know. So he needs to have a place to put all of that.
Mhm.
And so when we then begin to define for him, okay, all right, yes, you're a young man. Yes, you're strong. Yeah, this is where you can put it. This is what you can do with that. This is where, okay, so if this is nap time and you're not tired, you want to stay up or whatever, at some point he's going to get tired and he's going to begin to act a certain way, which indicates that he really needs to take a nap.
Mhm.
And so it's really defining that for him. Like Ali, the one who's Ali is actually you know I've always talked about the 10-year-old in my life, whatever. Well, Ali is in his second year at Virginia Tech right now. Remember when he was a real baby, little baby, and sometimes he would be, and it's around two, he would just be, whining or whatever, and we would just say, Ali, you're tired, so just go to sleep.
Mhm.
And then he would just lay down and he would go to sleep. So again, sometimes it's defining for them what's really going on, and then telling them what they can do about it,
Mhm.
and giving them a place for that energy at any given time. But when they do act up, or when they are really like, what, behave or whatever, as opposed to that, what, you're tired, what, you're frustrated, what. And that's what doesn't happen for us as
Mhm.
males. Our emotions don't We are often told what to feel and what to do,
Yeah.
but we're never told what's going on with us. So a lot of times we don't get in touch with our feelings, because we were never told it was never acknowledged what it is we feel, and then
Mhm.
what we could do with that feeling. you know um we're told, don't cry, as opposed to, you're upset, you're hurt, you feel this way, and this
Mhm.
is what we can do about that, or this is how, you know what I'm saying? A
Yeah.
place to put it. um because one thing we need to understand as parents is you can't negate it, you can't talk it away,
Mhm.
you can't deny it,
Yeah.
and they can't deny it. But what they do need is to know what do I do with this?
Yeah.
They don't know what to do with it yet. So they're just trying it out on you, and it looks like, this is what it looks like. And really, if you think about it, if you look at them when they're doing it, they're looking at you to see what you're going to do.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
looking because they're looking at you to do. So when we see that look, think of that look as more of a question as to what should I do with this?
Mm.
And just like the guy got down on this level and said, well, big boys
Yeah.
they don't draw on the wall, they draw on paper. Or do you need some paper or
Mm.
whatever. So that's I think right off the top, that's the first
Mm.
approach one of the things I would think about in dealing with them right now.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Whew.
yeah, yeah,
I am having well, that's I am having a time, and I don't know how many times we've done those youth development trainings. I am having a time, and
yeah,
I think
yeah.
it also comes from the fact that, especially on my mom's side, I saw over and over again single moms raise um raise young men on their own, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And I just kind of saw the pattern over and over again
Mhm.
where the mom would attempt to regulate their son's emotions for
Mhm.
them. And it
Mhm.
just raised men who could not regulate their emotions,
Mhm.
often did things that were, you know, at the lowest part of the scale, upsetting, at the highest part of the scale, obscene, and
Yeah.
zero accountability because there's always
Right.
someone here to regulate my emotions for me. And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
when things don't work out in life, it goes from being my mom's fault to my boss's fault to my girlfriend's fault.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it's just,
Mhm.
and mind you, I have the luxury of raising kids in a two-parent household.
Mhm.
And up until literally this moment, I was like, well, you know what? I'll do my best. I'll stay in my lane so that Arthur can do what he does, and
Mhm.
naturally it'll balance things out. And to me, that
Mhm.
even that felt,
Yeah.
it felt
Yeah.
very possible, but also felt not as responsible as it could be because I
Yeah.
can be intentional with
Mhm.
my role
Right.
as
Right.
well. And it's
Right.
created some parenting guilt. It really
Mhm.
really
Mhm.
has.
Mhm. And dad, and let me say this too. Dad has to be it dad's role in that is the same. It has to be reinforcing it and finding out where to put it. And even and dad can also be, well, when I feel this way, this is what I do. Or this,
Mhm,
if you look like you're tired, so, and when I'm tired, I just take a nap, or come sit beside me, what reinforcing what the response should be. But also, what needs to happen is dad needs to, at that point, especially when the reaction is in any way minimizing mom in any way, shape, or form, dad needs to say, literally and intentionally, "Oh man, we can't hurt mom's feelings. Oh man, we
mhm,
can't. We have to." That's where we begin to develop for young men how they deal with women and those
mhm,
relationships, how the men around, because you can by negligence, allow certain things, especially at that age, happen with young men. As a father, you can, by
mhm,
uh not helping to shape even that. So it's his emotions, it's his emotion giving direction for the child's emotions, what's going on with them. But it's also instructional from the father's side in terms of behavior, you know, that
mhm,
he needs to kind of, identify and direct.
mhm,
Because because see, if a kid says no to his mom and mom's just offended, well, that's just mom's mad at me.
mhm,
And mom's telling me I shouldn't say this, blah 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 blah. But that's mom. And I always tell people, kids don't care about us being mad. They
Yeah.
don't. They do not care about parents being angry because they will do stuff. Like I said, they'll do it and
Mhm.
turn around, look at you, and watch you to see what you're going to do. But what kids do care about, which is again, what's not articulated, usually because mom is angry, she doesn't articulate that. And this is where dad steps in, is that mom is hurt. We don't hurt mom. We don't
Mhm.
upset mom. We don't make mom sad, you know. And so a lot of people say, well, in terms of Mustafa, when they ask me about my relationship as far as and sensitivity as far as women issues and stuff like that, I never like to see my mom cry.
Mhm.
I would never. Now, my brothers and sisters, they would do things upset my mom. I simply didn't do things. Why? Just because I didn't want to see my mom cry. I didn't want to
Yeah.
upset her. I didn't want to worry her because she had a lot on her shoulders as a single mom. So, and and I would sometimes, when she would be upset and just different relationships and different things that people did to her, and she was upset, I hated to see my mom cry.
Mhm.
So I knew that much, about my mom, and about her feelings. And again, I was the chosen. I was the one she would talk about when she was upset, when something was happening. She would come and she would talk to me. So in my mind, that's always a role in a two-parent household that sometimes as dads we don't kind of think about. Like we'll get, again, even dads sometimes will get mad and say, don't talk to your mom like that, but still we aren't saying to the son or to what it is that mom is
Mhm.
feeling. And so they don't learn as children the the feelings of other people in that
Yeah.
sense. And that's where compassion comes in. It's up to us to teach them compassion. It's hard to teach compassion when you're the injured party, when you're angry, you
Mhm.
know. But when you're the observant party, then you have to define for that child, what's going on, not only with them, but how they're making other people
Yeah.
feel, you know. And even in youth development for parents, that's one of the things that we talk about. Is how your child feels and how the parents feel for real. And when young people understand that, then they can be more mindful of
Mhm.
what it is that they're doing. And and it's not too early for them to learn that that hurts when you do that, not just angry because, like I said, kids will watch you be angry all day because that's
Mhm.
entertaining.
Yeah,
Okay, what are
like,
you going to do now?
even when I was a kid, I'm like, "She mad, it's her own fault.
Right.
I know
Yep.
I did something. I know I
Yep.
started this whole thing. She need to control her emotions."
Yep.
And even when I think about it, in a way, I was repeating things that my dad believed
There you go.
about
Yeah.
women.
Yeah.
So it really does
Uh-huh.
start from a young age. Of course,
Yeah.
as his daughters got older and started to encounter whatever they were dealing with in relationships, it caused him to have a
Mhm.
paradigm shift. But
Right,
growing up,
right.
I was just like, see, she emotional,
Mhm.
emotional,
Mhm.
need to calm down.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, okay,
Mhm.
and that helps out a lot.
And moms can always tell because
Yeah.
they get,
Oh
yeah,
my
they
gosh.
can. Moms can always tell, and dads will be like, "Well, there's food on the table, and he's
Yeah,
doing this, and everything's okay,
because
and
there's
the house
a
is still standing."
I know because even me, I can feel there's been a shift in the change,
Mhm.
a shift in me and our oldest, and it's so funny I'm saying our oldest because he's two.
Uh-huh.
Got all the little kids over here in our dynamic, and I can't have that. It's too
Uh-huh.
early to set the stage for the shift in
Yeah.
our dynamic. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just trying to crack this code. And I know a lot of it has to do in adjusting to his new baby brother, the
Yeah.
newborn. He's only
Yeah.
been here for 6 months.
Yeah.
6 months is not a
Uh-huh.
long time if we've established a routine with him for over a year,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's sharing the spotlight. Like I
Mhm.
can diagnose it, and I
Mhm.
try to do things where it's just about him, like
Mhm.
he wakes up way earlier than our little baby. And so, when he wakes up earlier, I force myself to get out of bed so that he's running around. It's just him and I in the living room for a little while. So
Mhm.
there's things that I'm trying to do, you know. I know a lot of times, especially as Black people, as soon as a kid wants attention, we ain't gonna get it. Well, that's what
Right.
I mean.
Right.
So,
Right.
and there is a part of me like, you
Right.
can't, nope, you ain't gonna get me, nope, go
Mhm.
find out, but I don't want
Yeah.
him. His attention needs to come from home. I don't want him to learn how to seek
Uh-huh.
attention
Yeah.
elsewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. How
So
is his relationship with his little brother?
it's interesting.
Mhm.
It's getting better though. There are
Uh-huh.
times where he will try to make silly faces to make him
Uh-huh.
laugh.
Uh-huh.
You know, at one point I was giving him some leadership roles of like throwing away his
Mhm.
diapers and just little
Uh-huh.
things like shaking the bottle when I'm making it.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And he participated in that. I don't know if that he enjoyed it though.
Uh-huh. Mhm.
But I think it's coming around, but at the same time, he he's the baby and he
Yeah.
wants to be the baby. So I'll even catch him climbing into the crib, right? Just to be in
Uh-huh.
the crib,
Uh-huh.
sitting in the baby's bouncer, sitting in the baby's lounger. He's of the mind that he's being replaced. And he's not.
Okay.
Like if anything,
Okay.
he has a new role. And so we just need to co-create this new role with him.
Mhm. And
And figure that out.
also the other thing I was thinking of is also speak for the baby to him.
Mhm.
In other words,
Oh.
he likes it when you do this. Oh, he
Mhm.
loves you. Oh, speak for the baby to
Mhm.
him.
Okay.
So tell him, let him know that the baby needs him, loves him, appreciates him. Speak for the baby. The same, and it's the same thing I was saying about the father doing for the mom. Speak for the
Mhm.
mom to him, so that about how she feels. So speak for the baby to him, so he
Okay.
knows how the baby feels about him. You feel, oh, he loves it when you fix his bottle, or he loves it when you do, look at him smile, he loves that, so that
Mhm.
um because right now, again, when the new baby comes and he see things going to the new baby, and he sees, even when he has to do things for the new baby, the baby's getting everything, and he can
Mhm.
tell that the baby is giving you something because of how you treat the baby.
Oh,
So he needs to know that the baby's giving him something too, you know. So speak for the baby to him, and again, that's something mom and dad should do. So that begins to build that relationship between the two of them, even before the baby can literally speak or talk to him. So yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
I will definitely keep all this in mind, and like I said, I will
Hmm.
play back this episode. We might listen
Hmm.
to it in the car, but
Hmm.
this has been really, really helpful because
Hmm.
it's with parenting, especially in the moment, it's
Hmm.
so easy to default, no
Yeah,
matter what
yeah,
like,
yeah.
and even for me, the one thing I'll never do is spank. That's the one thing I ain't
Right,
never gonna
right,
default on. But all the other
right.
things,
Yeah, yeah,
so easy to default, and that really
yeah,
does bring us into because I have guilt,
yeah.
and after that I was like, you know what, guilt is a curse. Like it is a
It is.
curse
Oh,
word. It's
it
almost
is.
crippling my
It
ability to
is.
do better because I'm
Yeah,
so stuck
yeah,
on feeling bad.
yeah, yeah. It will actually, guilt will actually, as it's almost like, it's insidious, because it'll feed itself and even prevent you from even doing better. The guilt even of itself,
Mhm.
because it means you have to address it. The thing about guilt is, it's a thing that we know and we feel and we experience, and it's so painful because it creates shame, and then our reaction is to do whatever we can to avoid it, and that avoiding it, and here it is. If we try to do better, or if we look at it, the looking at it, the light we put on it, makes it uglier,
Mhm.
so that uh it's almost like, people who have done things and they're in a certain place, and why it's hard sometimes for them to get out, because in order to get out, we have to shine a light on it.
Yeah.
We really do. We have to face it, and we have to shine a light on it. But it's so, our stuff is so funky that we don't want to
Mhm.
see it. And so any light or any attempt to do better sometimes, or attempt to heal, means we have to see it, and we don't want to see the wound. It's better to just kind of
Mhm.
cover it up, and we get kind of comfortable. And the thing about it as parents is it becomes our curse, and it becomes a curse of our children, of those. And I think that's one of the largest, um, um, uh, or the strongest and most insidious of generational curse words. I think we as a people,
Mhm.
um, if we can get past that, and that's why the work of, just you know, forgiving, is huge, and forgiving ourselves, um, but it's if we don't we can't. That's why we can't move forward, I think, as a people. I mean, we think about it as
Mhm.
parents, and I think about it as a people. It's because um, the same. Here it is. The same thing, or the same reason so many people are fighting this critical race theory thing, this whole thing of looking at history and seeing, is because, I mean, think about it. One thing white folks don't want to do is they don't want to face who they are. I mean, even the well-meaning folks
Mhm.
don't want to face the depth of what white folks have done on this planet. Just the guilt itself, and you've seen the movements across the country, people doing anything to prevent the truth being taught to their children.
Mhm.
We
Yeah.
don't want to, we don't want them to feel, we don't want them to know. Well, but we all know that we can't achieve this balance, this equity, until white folks experience and understand their legacy, and
Mhm.
experience that guilt to the same extent that we as a people are experiencing this residue, and this history, and um, this inequity, to the same extent that we're experiencing what we have suffered, that they have to experience the guilt, and through
Mhm.
a responsibility, either directly or indirectly. You share some of that, because it continues, and that's how we know that everything is continuing, because they don't want to face the guilt.
Yeah.
So, and unless it's faced, again,
Mhm.
we can't. It remains a curse. It
Yeah.
remains a spell and a curse. you know
Exactly. Like that's what makes it a curse, is that
hmm
the longer you feel guilty, or the more power you give your guilt, the
hmm
longer you stay in the situation,
hmm
and the
hmm
longer you stay in the situation, the worse you feel,
hmm
because you have
hmm
not yet
hmm
conquered that
hmm
situation. And even when I
hmm
look at the Black community, a lot of times, um, as a whole, we feel guilty for the condition that we're
Yep.
in, even
Yes,
though
we
we
do.
had nothing to
hmm
do with why we are here.
hmm
We'll even try to blame ourselves for this
Yeah.
condition
Yeah.
by saying
Yeah.
stupid stuff like, "Well, Africans sold slaves too,"
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
pisses me off every time.
And I'm gonna tell you another thing too, that people
Mhm.
ask constantly, you know, what could we have done to cause us to be in this? What karma are we experiencing that this is happening? I say, come
Yeah,
on, man. I say your whole religion, you know, is based on the idea that there is an innocent
yeah.
who is suffering the guilt of the rest of the world.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's all, that of someone who's pure, who hasn't done anything. I said, and I always tell people, I parallel our history as a people with that story of Jesus Christ. You know, that, you take a people who've done nothing, who've been
Mhm.
of the light of the world, and all of a sudden all of the sins of the world are placed on this person,
Mhm.
and they are destroyed, they suffer, everything is taken from them, and they are crucified. Um, the the thorn, the mental the oppression, the thorn, the crown of thorns is
Mm,
placed on their head, so they have no knowledge of who they are and everything of who they, they're pierced in terms of their heart, their goodness, and everything, and they're totally crucified,
yeah.
so that the rest of the world, can then be redeemed, and that's everybody else ultimately gets
Mm.
redeemed when this people are resurrected from this circumstance
That's
and
what I was
situation that
saying.
they've been in. Yep.
This isn't karma, baby. This is metamorphosis.
Yes, it is.
The
Yes,
Congo
it is.
cosmogram, okay? And
Yes, it
even
is.
even as I was thinking about this, because again, especially within the context that I'm in, right?
Mm-hmm.
We predominantly serve wards 5, 6, 7, and 8. I am from the South, so I've seen gutter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes, as a community, we will feel shamed or guilty because of drugs, black on
Mm-hmm.
black crime,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
prostitution,
Mm-hmm.
dysfunctional families, you name it. But then I was like, the irony of a
Mm-hmm.
guilty black person. Like
Right.
the
Right. Irony.
irony
Right.
in that, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
you don't have to feel guilty because you didn't throw the stone and hide
No.
your hands. Like
Right.
it's
Right.
just like
Right.
it's just so crazy how we will just naturally in this context just take it on. Just
Yeah.
take it on,
Yeah.
just make it our responsibility
Yeah.
and then, you know, think backwards incorrectly to make it our fault.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I was just
Yeah.
thinking like the irony. That
Yeah.
is an
Yeah.
a guilty black
It is
person.
a guilty black person. Yeah.
A
With
guilty
it
black
because yeah.
person.
Yeah. Because again, within the context of how we're educated into this system,
Mhm.
we buy it because we don't know.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to, the responsibility of the elders, of those uh, who keep the history and the knowledge, and move it forward so that we understand that, and we forgive ourselves for that we don't really
Mhm.
even have to forgive ourselves,
Absolutely.
and that's you know, uh, and I'm just thinking about a lot of the scenarios. Well, well, we didn't fight back, or we did this
Mhm.
to ourselves, or we sold ourselves, or we did, all of these little things without looking at the overall context that
Mhm.
we are not the ones that started this.
Yeah.
We are not the ones that we were in a place where we didn't need gold in that sense, or we didn't need the
Mhm.
profit, or the capitalism. I mean, we had the perfect scenario. We had communities and societies that had no need for prisons. Um, so again, and like you said, it's a spiraling. Even the guilt is a
Mhm.
spiraling kind of thing when we pull ourselves up to a certain point, and then we just kind
Yeah.
of spiral back. But yeah, the irony of a guilty black person. Yeah, when you just think about.
It's just
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
And I mean and even in our interpersonal relationships, in my lifetime I've seen way too many friendships and partnerships
Mhm,
and
mhm,
marriages, relationships end simply because one party, committed an
mhm.
offense, whatever that
Yeah,
is,
yeah,
and the
yeah,
other party used that person's guilt for
yep,
a sense of power. And
yep.
then in the end, for a sense of power because you are hurt. And then in the end, no one wins.
No
Like
one
no one wins.
wins.
And even when I look at parents, a lot of times, parents will make their kids feel guilty even
Yeah,
at a young
at a young age.
age,
Yeah,
at a young
yeah,
age. We always talk about how parents they forgive but they don't forget. Remember when you did
yep, yep.
remember when and
Mhm,
also I feel like
mhm.
young people, even though it doesn't happen as often as parents, but young people they don't forgive their parents for
Yeah.
mistakes that their parents made
Mm-mm.
either.
Mm-mm.
It goes
Mm-mm.
both ways.
And it's because, and I think it's because we teach young people guilt. We teach them. In fact, we weaponize guilt. As you were just saying, it's a
Mhm.
weapon, and we use it and we pull it out, and we'll remember when, remember, or just like this,
Mhm.
we'll be in an argument about ABC, and then we'll bring out an episode of guilt that's
Mhm.
XYZ. It's not even related.
Yeah.
But parents will do that. Well, just like when you did such and such, those two. But again, we
Mhm.
weaponize it and we teach that to young people. So what we're doing is we already open up the door for when we make that mistake as a
Mhm.
human being, as a parent, and then the young people say, okay, yeah, this is what you, yeah, like when you did this or when you
Mhm.
did that,
Yeah.
or when, and then they won't let us forget it.
Mhm.
And then years and years and years later, they will remind us
Mhm.
of what it is that we did when all of that uh, deference wears off and we get older, as
Mhm.
parents, and then they will remind us, you did this, you did that, and you're right,
Mhm.
and again, it's a curse. Any way you
Yeah.
look at it, anyway, it's a generational, it's a cross generational, it's an intergenerational curse.
Mhm.
That whole thing of guilt, and we have to. That's one curse that
Mhm.
we've got to find a way back from. We've got to we've got to heal.
And
You
yeah,
know.
and even when I think about the way back, it leads me to think like, what is the prize now that we have established that I'm right and you're wrong?
Mm-hmm.
What like really what's the prize?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What do people think the prize is? And I just it makes me think people that do that already feel inferior, and they do
Mm-hmm.
that because they feel it will make them feel superior, especially since you done effed up. Now it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I got
Mm-hmm.
you. Because even before the offense, something was going on in me, and I'm
Right.
asking, is this person better than me, or am I better than them? Do I
Right.
measure up? Am I good enough? And
Yeah.
so on and so. And
Yeah.
then they do
Yeah.
something wrong, and
Yeah.
it's like, huh, I
Yeah.
am the superior person in this dynamic.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's ego. It's ego.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
ego. It's pure ego. That pure uh, sense of false identity that we are creating for ourselves so that we can believe we are
Mhm.
someone that we aren't.
Yeah.
It's that it's and so it's a gotcha. I
Mhm.
gotcha now, which means that I have a power.
Mhm.
I have a sense of something that I am that you are not, or
Mhm.
something that gives me or that validates who I think I want to be.
Yeah.
It fills that hole. Yeah, it's pure ego. It
Mhm.
is pure ego. That's the prize, that I
Mhm.
get to feel something because I have a one up on you. And so, and even if I turn around and do the same thing, well, you deserved it. It's a
Yeah.
payback. It's a karma thing. So I'm still one up because you did it first. I don't know how many
Mhm.
episodes of what is it, paternity court. Oh, well, I cheated because you cheated.
Oh,
So.
Lord. See, I can't watch those little vibrational I just and I know it's necessary, right? Because even oh my god, I did not wanna watch Scandal once upon a time, but I was like, the young people are
uh,
watching Scandal, so I guess I gotta
uh,
watch Scandal, but I do not wanna watch this modern day Thomas Jefferson,
uh-huh. I
fantasy, like,
know.
oh my
God.
god.
I know.
But
I know.
yeah, now this is just a remind. This is the third time that I've told myself, I know you don't want to watch it, but you're gonna have to watch Paternity Court if you're gonna deal with young
Mm-hmm.
people because you got to speak to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, oh
Mm-hmm.
no, but
Mm-hmm.
it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
The sacrifices we
Yeah.
make because we really do love you, young people.
Right.
Okay, and so
Yeah.
how do we? Because we've admitted it, we've
Mm-hmm.
apologized for it. We even went to repenting, right?
Mm-hmm.
To rethink it, to rethink
Mm-hmm.
about it. This is an ego thing. But how do you fix it? Cuz guilt, once both people are done
Mhm.
doing whatever they need to do with that guilt. That is a lot
Mhm.
of damage. That is a lot. There are people that aren't speaking for years and years and years and years because one person did something and the other
Mhm.
has continued to use guilt as a power play. How
Yeah.
do you
Um,
fix that?
it's and I'm thinking about a situation in my family. I'm thinking
Mhm.
about a situation
I'm
with
thinking about one too, Mustafa.
yeah, with my
It's rampant. It's
my
rampant in our
sibling.
community.
Yeah,
It
with my
really
sibling.
is.
And I'm thinking and what's making me think about it is this if we don't, and I'm a back into this answer.
Mhm.
If we don't forgive and forget, then what will happen is, I think, something worse than
Yeah.
this this continuation guilt of what we're alive. If we allow people to leave this plane without this process, then I think we create a spiritual debt for ourselves.
Mhm.
Um, because uh, if I don't, it's one thing with this person has they've admitted, they've apologized, they've done what they could to fix it, and I'm sure that they will never do this again. If I don't create a situation which acknowledges all of that, where I let this person know, I don't want this person to leave this level thinking that I have not forgiven.
Mhm.
I don't want them to move on. I don't want to create that spiritual um, karma where something is left undone or something is left unsaid. I've seen too many people, and even most recently, a funeral where just people, I'm sorry, or people really want to just
Mhm.
crawl into the casket with folks because they can no longer resolve
Yeah.
or let that person know. I have this thing with my kids when I will say I love you, and some of them will be like, "Well, yeah, Dad," and I say, "Well, look, you don't have to say it back. I want you to know that I love you, and I want you to know that I know that you love me."
Mhm.
Because I remember when my father passed, and it wasn't until he passed that I realized now, and I'm a grown man now, and he had passed, and I was talking to a friend. I think I might have been in my late 20s. Yeah, I was about between 25 and 30. And I was talking to a guy, and he was talking about his dad. And as he was talking about his dad, I realized something, because I grew up basically without my father around. But as he was talking about his dad, I realized something. And what I realized is that I never heard my father say to me, "I love you."
Mhm.
So I realized at that moment, and I broke down. I broke down because I realized at that moment that a man, I never heard a man who was responsible for me tell me that I love you.
Wow.
And it was at that moment that I said, "Oh, wow." You know how they say what you don't know what you can't miss what you never had. But you can. You can have an epiphany and
Yeah.
realize, "Oh, damn. I don't know what it's like to have a man tell me that he loves me, as a man." And that's so at that point is when I decided with my sons, my daughters, I would make sure that for the rest of their life, they would constantly hear what I've always heard from my mother every time, "I love you, I love you." And I would let them know that even if you don't say it back, I know that you love me. And the reason, and what I was doing back then is releasing the potential of a generational curse or whatever for them,
Mhm.
that so that they could never say, "Well, Dad didn't know I loved him because I never told him."
Yeah.
See, yeah, I don't want them to ever feel like, if they didn't say it back, or if whatever, I don't want them to feel like I did not know that they loved me. Now,
Yeah.
whether they do or not, but at least,
They
at
love you,
least they,
Mustafa. You know
yeah,
that.
I know. At least, I, so I think the forgiving and forgetting comes in us setting that tone with our children and with the loved ones in our life. You know, even though you may not, know it, or you may not, I do forget. I want you to
Mm,
know that I forgive you. I want you to know that I forgive you. And and I've accepted that, that you can forget it and that I can forget it, even if you don't say it, or even if you don't feel it, you know. So basically, it is a, I'm at peace
yeah.
with this, letting you know I'm at peace, and I want you to be at peace. Now
Mm,
you can choose, but this is where I am, and I think again we have to be intentional
mm.
about it,
I
and
do.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah,
I do
yeah,
too. And even even in my own um relationships, right?
mm,
Um First of all, the conversations that we needed to have to solve an issue where there was an offense were
mm,
much shorter than the
uh-huh,
amount of time that we felt using guilt as either a reason to punish ourselves or a
right,
reason to punish the other person.
yeah,
But also, one thing that I realized is that some things really can be unspoken.
hmm,
And so, especially, and I'm not trying to give a pass, if this is not a
hmm,
standard for you and your relationships, great. But I know,
mm,
even in past relationships, I would talk and talk and talk and pour my heart out and all that stuff.
mm,
And he would shift, he would change, he would do better, but the conversation wouldn't come that I wanted to come. This crazy thing
right,
happened and we never
right,
talked. But
right,
I've had to learn, especially dealing with black men, child.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sometimes a change in behavior is the apology. It's the
Is the
admission of
apology.
guilt.
It
It's the
is. It's, yeah,
accountability. It's not going to be the whole I talk, then you talk. That's great. That's
yep.
mature. That is healthy. If you have that, I commend you. If you don't, throw it all away.
That's gold. I'm telling you,
hmm
Olivia, what you just said is gold, because that has actually happened in my relationships. And now I'm speaking for the men. Um, we do that. We definitely do that. We will we will change. We
hmm
will do a 360. No, 360 brings you back to the same point. We'll do a 180.
A six
We'll do
o'clock. A
a
6 o'clock on the
right,
cosmograph.
right. We will change,
hmm
but some reason we just can't. Again, how we are as men, and sometimes we cannot bring ourselves to acknowledge and to have the conversation and to give the kind of closure that we know. And we know, I'm
hmm
telling you, we know women want it. We know exactly what they want.
Yeah.
They want the admission, they want the apology. They want the apology, which spells out what we did, how we know it was wrong, and how we know it affected them. We want, we know that women want that, but there's something in that guilt thing that
hmm
won't let us, because we'll have to see it. We'll have to see it. We'll have to live it from her
hmm
perspective, you know. Um, and that will be hard for us, and so and difficult, and sometimes almost impossible, but we can change. We can do it that way. we
hmm
can we can give that apology through that change, and we can, we I mean really we can repent and do all of that and change our thinking and
hmm
become different people, almost to the point that later on we'll be like, well, I'm not even the same person anymore. Why are you still upset? You
I know.
kind of thing.
I'm
Yeah.
aware. But
You know,
yeah. I
Yeah.
that's one thing that I've learned. I've learned you're not going to get the dramatic apology. I love you. I'm sorry. Here's flowers, because we are
Yeah.
still healing. You know,
Yeah.
we're still healing as a people. So,
Yeah.
you know, to accept my people is to
Yeah.
accept where everyone is,
Mhm.
of
Yeah.
the grand majority of us are.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's something that um, that I've learned, and at times I'm still learning. But yeah, we have been talking and talking and
Yeah.
talking. I
Yeah.
hope that you
Yeah.
all have enjoyed this long episode. This week's journal prompt, right, is
Uh,
to name it. Be
mhm.
honest with yourself. I don't care if you burn the paper afterwards because you ain't ready, right? Be honest with yourself. Write about something that a situation where that guilt is either eating you alive,
Mhm.
or write about something that you are holding over somebody's head. And then
Mhm.
we want you to use the way back. You may not even be there. I understand. You may not even be
Yeah.
there to implement it, but I want you to do the way back, to admit it, apologize for it, fix it, commit or rethink, change your thinking,
Mhm.
and forgive and forget it, right? You may
Yeah.
not be
Yeah.
ready to do it now, but like Mustafa said, one day you're not even going to be the same person. You're going to come
Yep.
across this game plan and be like, you know what? Ain't even nothing to do this. Let me go
Yep.
apologize.
Yep.
Let me just go apologize. I don't care if it's 3 weeks from now, 3 months from now, 3 years from now.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think that's the
Mhm.
journal prompt today, because we talked about how hard it is to name it,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
face that guilt, to be honest about it. But at least, you know, tell the truth to yourself, and
Mhm. Mhm.
set your intentions. Put that energy out there, even if you don't
Absolutely.
communicate it explicitly. But
Absolutely. Yeah.
yes, we
Yeah.
thank you
This is a
for
good one.
this was a
It was a good
great
one.
one. I know.
Yeah.
We thank you for joining us for
Yeah.
episode 5. We hope you like the longer episodes. Let us know how you feel about them, because we are long-winded now. We'll give them
Yeah.
to you every once in a while. But we will
Yeah,
see
good
you
people.
next time. And
We'll
thank
see you
you for
next time.
joining. I know. Thank you for joining us
Okay.
this week for
All right.
Generational Curse Words.
Take care, folks.